Okay, this is a short video on how to take paper one. Paper one is a little bit different than papers 2 and 3, which are basically just papers 2 and 3 are just you see some questions, you pick a couple of them and answer with some essay answers. Paper one's different. Paper one, you have no choice on the topic. It used to be peacemaking, peacekeeping, the interwar years, diplomatic relations. It's not anymore. The new curriculum is civil rights in America and apartheid. But this is an old test I just want to use for demonstration purposes. So you'll get a booklet like this. Notice that it's 1 hour. This is the shortest of the test. And you'll have 5 sources labeled A through E. And the sources are very short. See, it's just this little snippet here. And it also gives a nice explanation for what the source is. Source A is from Paul Birdsall, an historian and diplomat, writing in the specialist history book Versailles 20 years after 1941. So this is a secondary source about the Peace Treaty of Versailles, written 20 years afterward. Still a long time ago. Source B is William Billy Hughes, Prime Minister of Australia between 1915 and 1923, and he's at the Paris peace settlement. He's making a speech to Australian soldiers as the treaty is being written. Short excerpt there. So that's a primary document. And then source C is from Winston Churchill, who you know about. He was Secretary of State for War in 1919, then Secretary of State for Colonies in 1921. He was at Versailles. But this is an excerpt from a book he wrote about the First World War, The World Crisis, Volume 4, The Aftermath. He was a very, very productive writer. He wrote this in 1929. So this is sort of like the first source in that it's a secondary source after the fact, but it's also kind of a primary source because he was there. It's kind of a hybrid. Source D is a history book about Versailles, and it's written in 2014. So it is clearly a secondary source with the benefit of hindsight. The final source, source E, and there'll always be something like this. It's a political cartoon about Austria-Hungary and its terms, and seems to be saying it's unfair, and it gives you a little, usually gives you a nice little description here and says what certain little things say. So it's very helpful. Now, those are the sources. So you have 1 hour to answer these questions, and they proceed from easy to more difficult in terms of the cognitive skill required. 1A says, what according to source A were the problems facing the negotiators in Paris? Well, that's simple. You just relate what the source says. You've got the source in front of you. Now, it says that's 3 marks. You should realize that you need to make 3 distinct points or concepts. You might even want to make tick marks in the margin to make sure you do that. You want to make it as hard as possible for the IB instructor, examiner rather, to not give you points. 1B is what is the message conveyed by source E? It's just 2 marks, and that's the cartoon. So what is the cartoon saying? Make 2 coherent points about that. Do that quickly. You want to save as much time of the hour as possible for number 4. Number 2, so that was just basic description. Number 2 is compare and contrast sources A and D. And so 3 compares, you got 2 sources, 3 compares, 3 contrast, you've got your 6 points, your 6 concepts to get your 6 marks. Source 3, this is the OPCVL. This is an old test, so it doesn't mention the C, but with reference to their origin, purpose, and content, assess the value and limitations of source B and source C for historians studying the successes of the Paris peace treaties. So you've got OPCVL, that's 5, and you've got 2 sources to apply it to. You could get 10 points. You should easily get 6 distinct points. Do all this as quickly as you can. You should do 1 in 5 minutes. Because you want to save time for number 4. Number 4 is what we call either a mini essay or a fat paragraph, and it's the most challenging cognitively. It's the skill of synthesis, using the sources, all of the sources, although you don't have to mention all of them, and your own knowledge. This is where you have to bring some study material to the test, Examine the view that the settlement achieved at the Paris Peace Treaties was the best that could have been reached. So you're answering that question using the sources and your own knowledge, synthesizing those things. And you want to have 8 distinct points to get full marks. And that is how you answer a paper 1.